Alright, what's going on, you guys? It's Royce Jacob. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Stock Talk, series I make whenever I feel it's necessary, where we cover some exciting news and price action in regard to some of the stocks we've been talking about on the channel. Today's case, you know the deal. We are covering a few COVID-related biotech stocks. We will just go down the line here on the TradingView watch list: Sorrento, Moderna, and Novavax. We will take a look at each of these charts. I'll let you guys know what I'm thinking in regard to future potential price action, and I also have a few articles ready for you guys that we'll cover pretty quickly. I'll try to be quick with these guys, but obviously, you know, we have to establish a fundamental understanding of what's going on with these stocks. And I really kind of wanted to make this video to reinvigorate and almost reinforce some of the fundamental beliefs that, for me personally at least, that got me interested in the sector in the first place and bullish long-term on the sector in the first place, which I still am, okay? And the problem, which is a very big problem that all three of these companies are attempting to solve. Okay, I say that because obviously, as I'm sure many of you know, and you're probably feeling it, you're feeling the pain in your portfolio, these are all significantly below their recent highs, so kind of far off it as well. Okay, so it can be hard, you guys. It's hard to stomach volatility like this, but that's something I've been saying from the beginning, and you guys would know that if you've been keeping up over the past few months. Like with companies this small at this size, they're all still fairly small for the most part. They're all working on a revolutionary thing in a cure for COVID and such a destructive virus, and they've all seen crazy price action. So they're all still significantly up over the course of the past few months. But I mean, again, volatility is to be expected. You have to bear with the red days and keep your eyes on the prize, keep your hands strong if you really believe in these stocks fundamentally, like I do personally. If you want to trade them, that's perfectly fine. Like I have nothing against trying to day trade these. They're definitely day tradable. That's not my take personally, but to each their own, right? So as always, we will go over each topic that we're going to be discussing, then we'll dive into each one individually. In front of us, again, Sorrento. We'll just go down the line. We'll take a look. Sorrento, Moderna, Novax. We'll go in that same order for the news as well. So Sorrento, obviously, hard times for Sorrento. I've had a lot of you hit me up about this. I will just establish this by saying that I'm still bullish on Sorrento, as I'm sure you can assume from that intro, but still bullish on Sorrento even after the stock again slumped 13.5% in after hours. This was yesterday. Today, I think it closed the day down about 10%, so it did carry over. Obviously, bad news, firing their CFO. That very bad optics, of course, so it makes sense. It's understandable that the stock did pull back. There's already, there was already a lot of negative momentum for Sorrento too, so it's not surprising at all to see that. But to brighten things up, again, I do want to just reinvigorate the bullish fundamentals around this sector. So Sorrento Therapeutics may bring best-in-class COVID-19 tests. This is a very long article. I do recommend you guys go check this out. This is a Seeking Alpha article with this title, but again, I'm definitely not going to go over all of this with you, but we will go over a few of the pros and cons that are, just bullish for Sorrento. And again, the reason why I'm continue to be bullish on Sorrento even after all these consecutive red days. Okay, we will then go on to Moderna. We'll take a look at the chart, bring up Moderna on the charts, take a look at this article too. So three green flags for Moderna's future. Again, this is just kind of reestablishing what's going on in this space and how far these guys have come. Because again, it's hard to remember the fundamentals and the progress that these companies are actually making fundamentally when there's so much, when you're seeing red, when there's a lot of just bad news flying around, to be real. But I mean, that bad news, the CFO being fired specifically, like, is a good example of something that won't really matter long term if any of these companies do establish an efficacious treatment or vaccine. Okay, so we'll take a look at this guy. We will then go on to move to this quickly. I will just read the highlights here. But coronavirus vaccine with 50% or more efficacy would be a game changer, says trial investigator. Okay, so that's something you have to remember, guys, is that a vaccine doesn't need to be 100% effective for it to be actually released, go into manufacturing and stuff. So we will cover this. We'll just talk about that just because it does affect the entire environment and the sector fundamentally. So we'll touch on that, and then we'll move on to Novavax last. Again, you guys, I'm not personally invested in Novavax right now. I did have my time with Novavax. I've seen a lot of games from Novavax. I do attribute that I'm thankful for them for the gains they have given me. But as I've said before, I'm focusing on two horses in this race. My vaccine horse is Moderna, and my treatment horse is Sorrento. I'm sticking to that, kind of weeding out all the other stuff. There's a lot of other sectors I'm bullish on right now, as well, as I'm sure you guys know if you've tuned in before. But I will still cover Novavax. I covered Novavax a lot in the past. I know a lot of you still might hold Novavax. So I just want to give you guys my take on it, right? So, I mean, this guy, I'm not going to, Mr. Sun of the Motley Fool, that's a tough first name. But he made both these articles. These are both very solid articles, the one on Moderna and Novavax. So, yeah, go check him out on Motley Fool if you want to catch these whole articles. Again, I will just go over the highlights. Okay, so before we do get into it, I will ask you guys, as always, to please give the video a like if you do go on to gain value from it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here and want to catch more investing content like this. And check out my complete portfolio and daily newsletter. First link in the description if you want to know my exact positions, call options, put options, etc. on all the stocks that we're going to be talking about today. Okay, so once again, kicking it off with big boy Sorrento. I mean, I think the last stock talk I did on this, I had to go in this morning and erase a bunch of the arrows that I was completely wrong on. So I want you guys to remember that. You guys, I do my best. I use all the experience I have and the data available to me to make the best predictions I have. And again, trust me, I do my best, not only for myself, but for everyone watching who does put any weight on this. Again, you guys, I'm not, have to establish this right now, I'm not a certified financial advisor, as I'm sure most of you know and can assume. I just do my best. I've been doing this for years, and I do my best to make the best predictions I can, and that's all I can do. But I'm not guaranteeing anything at all with this, okay? I could be completely wrong. All right, which is what I was in my last Sorrento analysis. I thought for sure that we would bounce in this area and create an ascending triangle and then go on to break and once again retest this upward line of what was support and resistance. Okay, so that obviously didn't happen. I mean, there's some bad news. That was very bad news that came out yesterday, which did contribute to obviously a significant 10 to 15% move down. So life throws a curveball sometimes, right? There's nothing you can do, especially within these markets. There's news always plays a factor, okay? Technicals come secondary to fundamentals. Always say that because it's true. All right, so on the bright side, this is a short-term time horizon. Again, you guys, long-term, I do expect Sorrento to hit the $27 region. I'm not even going to go over that again just because I can see that happening. Once they release any tangible, even like the slightest bit of tangible good news in regard to their treatment or mass production of their treatment, whatever, I think we will see a rally once again up to $27. Right now, we are just in kind of a capitulation corrective phase. This happens to all stocks, you guys. I've played many bubbles in my life. This happens almost every time. And again, you just see this. So what I expect to happen on the short term, we'll start with this. Usually we do the fundamentals first, but I'll just get straight into it because I rambled on so much in the beginning. But I expect it to sum things up to use this line of what was support as a line of resistance now. So I think we'll come up over the course of the next couple of days, retest this line, start using this as a line of resistance. We'll probably come back down a little bit, retest this area that it's spent a lot of time at, as you can see over here over the course of the past week, around like the 1220 region. It'll probably bounce off that. I think it's probably going to break out. So actually this is wrong. So I think it's probably going to break out of this area of support once it tries back up again, and then use this once again as a line of resistance. So break out of that line of resistance, or a line of resistance, once again use it as support, and then ultimately come back up and retest this area that it used pretty strongly as both a line of support and resistance back in early August. Okay, so I mean, I know it seems like the bear market, it's been a bear market forever in Sorrento, but I mean, you guys, it's only been like a week. So keep your eyes on the prize. Let's look over this real quick. So I'll just read this quick and give you guys my take on it. So what happened? Shares of Sorrento Therapeutics, a biotech drug manufacturer, in a filing with the SEC Commission SEC on Monday, stated that Shao is terminated in its entirety, effective immediately. Further, the company announced that it has appointed Najim Asghar as, I'm sorry if I butchered that, you guys, I'm doing my best, as its new CFO. Asghar has already been performing the role of chief accounting officer for the company since 2019. Why it matters, Sorrento also claimed that Shao's termination is in association with the company's conflicts with short seller Hindenburg Research. So this is actually good news to me. And I'll explain why. So if they accused their chief financial officer, that's what CFO is, which is the guy that got fired, of he was the one involved with all the foul play, get rid of him. That's good. That's a net positive for the company. You don't want bad eggs in your company, okay? Especially when you're working on such a powerful thing, a powerful project. You don't want the guy who runs all your financials to be insider trading. That's what got you in trouble. That's what caused that initial sell-off in Sorrento, was bad news like that. Okay, so get rid of him. He's a bad egg. That's good news for the company long term. And I mean, if this guy who is the chief accounting officer is now running financials, then he's obviously capable of doing at least a decent job of the financials until they're able to find a new highly qualified chief financial officer. Okay, so again, you guys, news like this is never, the same as like lawsuits and stuff like that, has never really fazed me. Obviously, it affects the market. It's bad news, it's bad optics, and it does cause moves like today. But it doesn't change the fundamentals in my mind, which is why we'll move on to this. Again, you guys, there are some this is such a long but really well written article, so I do recommend, if you like super long or super heavily weighted in your portfolio with Sorrento, I recommend you guys check out this article. It's probably the most in-depth article I've ever read on Sorrento. Okay, on August 15th, the FDA issued EUA approval for saliva-based COVID-19 test developed at Yale School of Public Health. So that's the other piece of news that came out in that was a catalyst for Sorrento's pullback over the course of the past week or so, was Yale's test. Okay, so Yale has a test. Everyone's like, oh, Sorrento's done, I guess. I guess Sorrento has no shot now because Yale came out with it. But this kind of argues, this article does a really good job at comparing the two, and really Sorrento comes out on top. So Yale's test is called Saliva Direct, and it is a positive step forward in the evolution of the testing space. Sorrento's COVID trace holds several key advantages over the Yale test and other competing saliva-based tests. So scroll down here, try to go through this quickly. Cost. Saliva Direct is estimated to cost $20. However, the Yale test also requires shipment to a lab for processing. Overnight shipping costs the lab can cost $25 to $40. The total cost of the Yale test, Saliva Direct, may be 5 to 10 times more expensive to the consumer as compared to the Sorrento test. Sorrento Therapeutics CEO Henry G has stated that the Sorrento Columbia test COVID trace might cost only $10. The Sorrento test is an on-site test that does not require labs, so that is huge. That's the single biggest factor in what gives the Sorrento test. Again, remember, if proven efficacious, they haven't 100% proven it yet. But if it's an on-spot, that's that cheap, that's insane. This means no shipping costs or lab costs for the COVID trace test. So remember that, you guys, in these testing, Yale, even if they claim to have a cheap test, all the what you pay for is the back end stuff, almost like everything else involved in medical stuff. If you've ever dealt with any medical situation in your life, you know it's not the thing itself, it's all the back end costs, it's all the labor costs, this. So that's the problem with the Yale test. Sorrento's an on-site test. That's huge. Okay, so advantage on cost does go to Sorrento. Advantage no lab testing required goes to Sorrento. Advantage of 30-minute testing versus 3-hour testing goes to Sorrento. Testing accuracy. Sorrento's COVID trace test delivers the highest level of both sensitivity and specificity, measuring 97% and 100% respectively. Yale's testing capabilities may be much lower. It should be a concern that the Yale researchers have not been forthcoming with publishing their numbers on specificity and sensitivity. Okay, so I mean, again, it's not been. You can't say that Sorrento's test is 100% proven, 100% ready, because then it would be out there already, right? But what they're showing now is that Sorrento's test currently, I mean, measuring 97% and 100% respectively. That is, I like those odds. I'm liking those odds so far. So it does beat out Yale's test in as of now in terms of accuracy. Okay, so that's great news. And also, this just kind of intuitively, what I'm thinking here is that if the FDA cleared Yale and is like doing the government is working with Yale in that sense and kind of giving it the clear and giving them good news, it only makes sense to me intuitively that they're going to do similar to like what Operation Warp Speed did for like Moderna, Pfizer, Novax. They'll probably do a similar thing to these treatment companies, okay? So I wouldn't be surprised to see them come to Sorrento and kind of make this exact same announcement as Yale saw about a week or so ago. Okay, so summary, and then we'll wrap Sorrento up. Clearly, Sorrento's COVID trace owns several crucial advantages over Yale's Saliva Direct test. It is possible that COVID trace may become the gold standard for literally billions of essential COVID tests that may need to be taken in the months and years ahead around the world. Only the Sorrento Columbia COVID trace checks all the boxes here for saliva-based testing, affordable testing, rapid 30-minute point-of-care testing without any lab necessary, highly accurate testing. The Sorrento Columbia COVID trace product currently appears to be a front-runner that may be acknowledged as best-in-class COVID-19 test. So again, you guys, this is the fundamental stuff that you have to keep an eye on. And remember that, because what I see here is a bunch of weak hands. Okay, this is a bunch of inexperienced weak hands who bought at the top and sold. And that's the reason for volatility, just from a trading perspective. That's the psychology of this game, which you guys have to understand. A lot of people bought up here. They saw the hype from Sorrento. They heard all the good news. Happens in every bubble, happens in every bull market, happens in every exciting environment within the markets, and you have to expect this. You expect corrections. Okay, so Sorrento at this level, again, it did bounce perfectly. This was worst case scenario in my mind. Back when we first saw this dip, I did not expect it to do this, but it did, and it's okay because it did once again bounce just barely. It didn't barely touch it, but it just, traders assumed that it was going to bounce once again off this top that it said at the end of July, prior to this huge run up, and it did. And I expect this to be the absolute bottom, unless they just completely flop, which I don't think is very likely. Again, it could happen. I don't know. Probably not though. And I think we're going to start another run up, and I do think Sorrento ultimately over the course of the next few months will hit $27. I personally have adjusted my portfolio correctly on these dips. I've added pretty much every day just a little bit to my call options position during this dip, just because I'm so bullish long term. That same principle applies to almost every asset that I invest in. Is if you're bullish on something long term, and again, I never take on a position that I'm not fundamentally bullish on. I'll add to it. I see these dips. I mean, you're buying at a discount, right? That's as cliche as that is. You're buying these, you're buying shares, you're buying calls, you're buying contracts at a discount. Okay, so I'm bullish on this long term. I still think Sorrento over the course of the coming months will hit $27. Let's move on to Moderna now. So Moderna sadly is still floating underneath this absolute lower line of support that I've had drawn here for a long time. So let's actually go to the past 6 months here. Man, time is flying. Okay, so we're on the 2-hour time frame right now. So as you can see here, Moderna once again was following this super nice uptrend over the course of, since we started covering it back in early March, when all this started happening. Okay, so Moderna unfortunately right now is below the absolute bottom line of support. It bummed me out to see that. But what I think will happen, so with Moderna, because the technicals are just tough to justify right now, once again, because it is technically in a downtrend. You can see here this arrow, it's a line, whatever, but this arrow, it's technically in a downtrend. So if Moderna can break up above this downtrend, so actually break the downtrend, let's zoom in a little bit here. So if Moderna can break this downtrend that it's set here, it's not going to be too tough for it. If it can go flat tomorrow, it will technically break out of this downtrend that it's been in since July. So if it can do that and then once again break above this line that was support, I assume it'll once was support is now resistance, might come up, try to bounce off this, and then similar to Sorrento, you'll see it break out of here and then once again start using it as support, and then ultimately I think it will come up to retest one of these when they I assume they will, because I still, once again, the reason I picked Moderna, the reason it's the only vaccine play in my portfolio, is because I think they're going to win. I think they're going to win the race. Again, I could be completely wrong. Pfizer's doing pretty well too. Oxford's doing well. I don't know. One of them, I don't know who's going to come on top for sure, but I'm just into it. My instinct is telling me Moderna. I'm going with that. I've learned to trust my gut at this point, so I'm doing that. Again, I could be completely wrong, but my money is on Moderna, and I do think once they announce that that news, that we will see a retest at first back up to this middle line of resistance that it used both as support and resistance, and then ultimately back up to this absolute top. Okay, so nothing's really changed aside from the fact that, again, it does need to break this downtrend, which I do think is pretty likely within maybe even tomorrow. By the end of this week for sure, I think it will break out of this downtrend, and then again do something similar to Sorrento. Okay, so let's move on to the 3 green flags for Moderna's future. So this initial statement is very important in my mind. Okay, so once again, shout out Mr. Sun. So far this year, the viral disease has killed nearly 744,000 people worldwide, including more than 167,000 Americans. In addition to the loss of life, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that the coronavirus's long-term economic damage will amount to $16 trillion over the next 10 years. Okay, so again, this virus is the number one enemy of the world right now. It has caused an absolute economic catastrophe. For those of you who don't know, that 100%, the stock market is not the economy. That's a very important thing to understand, okay? The economy is still fundamentally in a terrible place, okay? Unemployment is still bad. Businesses are still closing. All the metrics, even though they seem maybe getting better week to week a little bit, are still terrible. In the grand scheme of things, still very bad. The stock market's at a high because the government's printing trillions and pumping it into the economy, specifically the stock market. And that's why it's up. Plus, you got a whole bunch of retail traders pushing their cash they're getting into the markets right now. Okay, so it's important to understand that the economy is different than the market. That said, the economy is still very bad, and it is due to this virus that has caused so much pain and death, literally death, pain, just millions, like depression, so many bad things globally. And that's the thing that you have to remember. That's what made me fundamentally bullish on this entire sector from the jump. This virus is the number one enemy of the world. And you want stocks. You want save the world stocks. I've called them since the beginning. You want save the world stocks. People want money. People want to put their money in save the world stocks. You're betting on optimism. When you invest in these companies, you're betting on the human race to succeed and triumph over this virus. Okay. So that's, again, a little just getting into the psychological aspect of things. But let's go here. And again, this is pretty long as well, but I'll try to be quick with this. Promising COVID-19 vaccine candidate. mRNA's leading candidate, a messenger RNA therapy that seeks to evoke immune system response against the novel coronavirus in phase 1 clinical trials. All participants who were inoculated developed antibodies that defend against the disease. The vaccine candidate has entered phase 3 clinical testing with results expected in the fall. However, government buyers are already somewhat sold on the vaccine's prospects, placing their orders, and now should the vaccine come to market and be in high demand. So again, that's what you have to remember, you guys. The Moderna, that's the primary reason I've been betting on Moderna. Not since I just got it early. I do have, to be completely honest, a bias to Moderna just because it's been my pick from the beginning and I've been following them. And I've done the most research on Moderna, to be honest, like by far. But I mean, they're furthest along objectively too. They're the furthest in clinical testing, and all the tests so far, like all their trials, have gone extremely well. So it gives me it allows me to justify my bullish nature around the stock because they've been doing well and they're the furthest along in the process. Okay, so 2, strong balance sheet. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 vaccine development program, Moderna has witnessed a steady influx of capital to fund its research efforts. On May 18th, the company raised $1.3 billion in a stock offering. In April, Moderna was awarded $483 million by the U.S. Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, BARDA. And in addition, $472 million to fund an increase in enrollment to 30,000 participants in phase 3 of the clinical trial. The company now has a staggering $3.1 billion in cash. That's great. That is great, especially you guys. I always talk about that in all my other videos. When you're looking to invest in a company for the long term, especially in this terrible economy and this like pretty tragic economic environment, you want to make sure that these companies have the cash to withstand hard times. And as of right now, Moderna does, as opposed to a lot of these other guys who aren't looking too hot. Okay, so representing a significant increase from the $1.72 billion it had in the first quarter, its financial situation is expected to improve as more countries build their stockpiles. 3, finding the cure for CMV. Okay, so I'm not really going to go into this. I did highlight it, but we're getting a little long here. So what you have to remember is that even with all these vaccine companies, Novavax and Novio, some of the other Vaxart, Sorrento even, they're all working on different things outside of COVID. Obviously, COVID is what I imagine would turn me onto these companies recently, but I imagine turned a lot of you onto them. But you have to remember, these are biotechnology companies. They're not only working on COVID, they have multiple different arms and they're attacking multiple different things. Okay, so CMV, again, there's no current vaccine for it. The treatments don't work very well. And if Moderna can do that, it monopolizes that market. And the same thing applies for so many other conditions that aren't yet treated. And that's something just important, that this goes across the board, similar to the first statement in this article. Just that these companies are multi-pronged. They work on different levels. Okay, obviously COVID is the front-facing one. If they get that, they're in the money. But they're also working on a lot of other stuff that over the long term specifically can do them very well and make them a very appealing company. Okay, so what should investors think? With a promising COVID-19 vaccine candidate, a strong balance sheet, and innovative pipeline, Moderna's $27 billion market cap looks small compared to its potential. Even though the stock has returned more than 250% year to date, future profits could be missed by those who refuse to buy high and sell even higher. So that's important too. So this, similar to Novax, we'll talk about that in this next article quickly. But you guys have to remember, even though these stocks have run up and actually pulled back significantly, so Moderna is like, it's so, and this may seem forward, but it's so obvious to me that these stocks it's not the end for these stocks. This is just, you see this, look at this. So you remember the run up in May? Remember that same thing? We're seeing almost the exact, like this is almost a mirror image of what played out right here. And I think we're going to see this exact same thing happen in Moderna once again reach new highs. Okay. And Moderna hasn't even released the news of like so imagine what happens. Just again, obviously you need news to catalyze a move like this, which I just think it's going to happen. I think it has to happen. Okay. But again, remember, if someone beats them, they could flop, but I just can't see. just looking at the pattern, I think we're going to repeat this exact pattern pretty much for the most part. Okay, so that's Moderna. Let's move on to Novax to close this thing off. Once again, you guys, I'm just going to plug this right now. If you guys do want to know my exact call options on Moderna and Sorrento, can check out and hear me write about them almost every morning pretty much during market hours, more real-time updates for myself. Check out the Complete Portfolio daily newsletter, first link in the description. I appreciate it if you do. If not, no worries at all. Okay, so just want to throw that in there. Anyway, let's close this off with Novax. You see Novax, man, this was... As I was covering it, it was so impressive to see the strength of Novavax in this uptrend. It is very rare in my years that I've seen just such a textbook uptrend and just such a solid channel. Okay, like this up channel that Novavax was in from all the way from late June to early August, so months, was so impressive and so strong. And again, once you see right as it broke that channel, it just completely sold off. So it broke from 170 down to a low of 112. It's like a solid 30-40% retracement. I mean, but it was kind of due. So Novax, we'll start with the article. I usually do that, but I switched it up a little bit here. So we'll start with the article first, and then we'll move into the technicals to close things off. All right. So 3 reasons to buy Novavax by, again, our boy Mr. Sun. The science participants demonstrated a robust T-cell response. T-cells recognize virus-infected cells and tell those cells to self-destruct, preventing the virus from spreading throughout the body. Unlike antibodies, which may disappear just weeks after dosage, T-cells can form memories and pathogens for months or years. Okay, so, I mean, this is different. So this is a different approach than some of the other companies, including Moderna, are taking. So, I mean, if Moderna, I can't imagine just because all the data up to this point is solid. But I mean, if that technology does happen to flop out, then it's good that there's another company working on a different method to tackle the same solution. Okay, so they are using T cells, they're utilizing T cells, which is obviously a different method of attacking the virus within the body. So that's good. In that, Novax has the commercialization aspect of things secured as well. The company expects to manufacture 1.5 billion doses COVID-19 vaccine by next year, pending clinical trial success. Assuming each dose sells for 20, that means the company can generate 25 billion in gross proceeds to be split between itself and commercializing partners. Not bad indeed. A market cap of 8.5 billion, 8.85 billion is quite small for a company that could be bringing in over $1 billion of its vaccine candidate succeeds in the clinical trials and it receives approval next year. So far, the company's shares have surged 1,750% since January, turning a modest investment of $10,000 at the beginning of the year into $185,000 in just 8 months. Okay, so again, Novavax, that's kind of another reason that I pulled out of Novavax, is just because, again, 8.75 or whatever it's at, $billion market cap, still in the grand scheme of things, sub $10 billion market cap. That's a drop in the bucket in the equity markets. So there's still a lot of room for growth. Remember, you guys, especially if they're solving, this is a save the world stock. Whoever reaches this first they have saved the world. Whichever company does this is the save the world stock, and they will be compensated as such, which is important to remember. Okay, but again, you guys, Novax. I'm obviously not super. I don't doubt by any means that especially if they release good news, they are not as far along as Moderna in clinical trials. So obviously that's kind of a huge factor in my and a determining factor in me deciding if I want a Novavax or not, which I decided I didn't. But I think Novavax could definitely still recover here, although it has gone up so much. But again, it has gone up, 1,700% since the beginning of the year. That's crazy. That's very unprecedented growth. It's very rare you see that. So they will need to drop some significant news. This applies to all of these to catalyze a significant move up. But the pessimistic side of me here sees kind of a head and shoulders that could play out. So again, you guys, this is by no means a textbook head and shoulders. It's just anything that resembles a technical pattern. I never discount it. So you see left shoulder here, head. It did see that significant spike down, but it's capitulating around this area again, which is where it was going straight prior to that move down. So I think we might see it come back down to test this previous high that set back in early July, and once again back in mid-July around the $112 region. You can see that's exactly where it bounced off of when it crashed, when it saw that like 30-40% retracement after it broke that line of support. Okay, so it wouldn't surprise me personally to see it come up here. On the bright side, again, we could once again, same principle applies, same exact principle. So we could see it once again come up here and retest this line of resistance. That's the most bullish case scenario in my mind. These two lines drawn here are previous, like from years ago, lines that Novovax has used as lines of support and resistance in the past. So that you can see it did bounce off of it right there. Use it back here too, and it used it a bunch of times over here. So just look at previous, just TA 101. If you're ever looking at a chart, just look at previous areas where even like go back 5-10 years. Look at where the stock has used price points as a line of support or resistance, just to dictate where it could bounce off of and what it could continue to use as either a line of support and resistance, because it probably will. All right. So, I mean, bullish case for Novax, I think we could potentially see it. Again, it would need some good news to catalyze a move up, but I think we'll probably see it similar to Sorrento and Moderna. Same exact principles apply. Come up, probably use this line as a line of resistance until it breaks out, and then once again uses this top line as a line of resistance once again. Okay, so again, you guys, same principles apply. You can apply that to any chart. That's what I do. That's what I do, obviously. So we'll call it there, guys. Once again, you want to know my positions, complete portfolio newsletter down below. I really appreciate it if you check it out. If not, it's all good. But we'll call it there, guys. Please let me know down in the comments what you're thinking about the sector overall. If this did reinvigorate, again, a lot of you have been hitting me up, just showing a lot of signs of worry about this, and it's understandable, you guys. It's hard. I know a lot of you are new, and it's hard to stomach. You need thick skin if you want to get involved with revolutionary sectors like this. I mean, again, blockchain, some of the gold and silver miners, they're seeing a lot of volatility as well. Those are a big piece of my portfolio right now. The same principle applies. You guys, again, I never invest in anything that I don't see significantly higher in like 6 months. Okay, so I do have a long-term time horizon. The day-to-day price action really doesn't faze me. It doesn't make a dent in my long-term opinion on some of these, and it's really hard. It is hard to stomach. I remember when I started out, it sucks. Red days suck. Losing money sucks. It's never fun. But you just have to keep your eyes on the prize, keep your hands strong, because again, the weak hands are the ones who lose. If you panic sell, you're a loser. Okay, so don't panic sell. You will get the urge. I still get the urge myself. You're gonna want to panic sell. Just don't. Keep your hands strong. You will win in the long game if you're bullish on the sector, like I'm. Again, not financial advice, you guys. I don't know for a fact anything. I'm just telling you what I believe and know that my money's on it as well. Okay, so we'll call it there, guys. Again, just talk to me about whatever you want in the comments. Love talking with you guys. Love learning from you guys. And until next time, always remember, take action, make waves. Peace.